Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Patience Milrod. I'm the chair of this task force, and we'll introduce ourselves in a moment, but I want to introduce you to the new management of this facility, Kimberly, and I'm going to let her say a few words about that.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Again, we're under new management as of last year of April. So we just want to welcome you guys here. And if you have any questions after, feel free. We're open for questions, okay? After your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a quorum. We are the Anti-Displacement Task Force, and I'm going to ask, starting with Morgan down there, for us all to introduce ourselves, and hopefully we'll be done by the time Eric gets back to his seat and he can introduce himself too.
Hi, I'm Morgan Doizaki. I'm with Chinatown Fresno Foundation and Central Fish Company.
Artie Padilla, Director of Every Neighborhood Partnership.
Hi, good evening. Grecia Lenes with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability.
Good evening, Robert Fuentes. I'm a civil rights attorney.
Good evening, Debbie Darden, Southwest resident.
Good evening, Eric Payne, Southwest resident.
Good evening, Patience Milrod, Central California Legal Services.
Good evening. My name is Sal Gonzalez with Lance Cashin and Company.
We so appreciate your all being here. Thank you so much. There are agendas at the back of the room. We're going to be as efficient as we possibly can. Welcome to you all. Asking the task force, now that you've had a chance to look at the agenda, is this acceptable? Can we agree on this agenda, or does anybody from the task force have any amendments to the agenda?
So moved.
So Ms. Darden has moved that we accept the agenda. Is there a second? Second. And Ms. Elenes has seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. So you will find attached to the agenda a meeting summary. It is not minutes in the legal formal sense, but it's a basic outline of what we talked about last time we got together. And especially for those of you who haven't joined us before, we hope you have a chance to take a look at that. And if there's anything on here that you disagree with, then by all means mark it up and let me have it, and we'll make sure the record gets corrected, even though, as I say, these aren't formal minutes. So as you know, last time we met, we were concerned about how do we find out what neighborhoods are threatened with displacement, and what do we do to protect those neighborhoods so people can stay in their homes and stay in their businesses? How do we do that? So a few of us have spent it's about 6 weeks now looking at who has the data, how do we use it, who knows how to analyze it, and we found out nobody knows. So we're gonna have to invent this. So we're in the process of working on that. But we did, I'm gonna ask Grecia if she would mind talking about the Urban Displacement Project, with whom we had some conversations. And then the subcommittee had some recommendations that we'll go over after that. Is that, Grecia? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. There's a microphone right here. And thanks, Morgan.
Okay, yes, on this, my last meeting that I went to, they had a book showing, saying what's going to take place, what action, what areas that they want to take, and what they were going to build. And we were told that we can go up to the City Hall, I think it is, to go get a book. And my wife and I, we went up there, and they didn't want to give us one.
This was one of the plans. Was it the
Yes,
Southwest
yes,
plan?
ma'am.
So these folks over here are city employees, and
Okay.
that's Sophia waving her hand. And if you talk with her, she will make sure you get a copy of the plan.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Gracia?
Yeah, so the Urban Displacement Project is this collaboration of like different universities, primarily UC Berkeley, working with like Stanford and other places, where they're leading a lot of work on looking at what's happening with displacement and what areas are successfully more or less mitigating displacement in their communities, primarily in the Bay Area and in the LA areas. And they have this really awesome website where you can look at it, and it looks at like the different policies, what they mean, and like a host of like, it's not just, basically saying it's not just like one solution, it's like a different number of policies and programs that you put in place in order to make sure that people, especially renters, can stay in their home when you have tens of millions of dollars in investments, when you have, a lot of attraction coming to your community. And so we were in touch with them, the subcommittee was in touch with the Urban Displacement Project, and seeing what type of collaboration we could do, recognizing that the city of Fresno is not LA, is not San Francisco or Oakland, that we have, our own unique issues. And so seeing like what information, like as patients mentioned, like what is out there, like what already exists that we can already use, and seeing how is it that we can work moving forward. Unfortunately, they're in a process of restructuring their own organization, so it's been put on pause for a second, and looks like they're going to be taking a step back for a while. Meanwhile, they figure out kind of the structure of their organization and the group. So I think meanwhile we're kind of, I think patients is going to go over like the next recommendations that kind of came out of the subcommittee next steps here.
So we thought they had the silver bullet. They don't have the silver bullet. So like I said, we're still like back in that, because we're unique, we're rural. We're not Chicago, we're not Los Angeles, San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland. We have really different issues. So yeah, so we're kind of left to our own devices. So that's why we're here and why you're here. So one of the things that we want to do this evening, you can see under B, there's a little two eyes, little small two. We want to ask people to break up into maybe 3 groups and talk about what does this look like if we're successful. If we as a task force and you as a community are successful in preventing displacement, are successful in preventing gentrification, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? What does that look like in your, I talked to some folks who are feeling pressure because people are sending them stuff all the time. We want to buy your house. We want to buy your house. Well, that's one kind of thing that you don't really want to have to be exposed to and deal with, right? So that might be one measure of we are stable and people know that and they stop trying to take advantage of me by trying to buy my house or whatever. So that's one metric. There are probably a lot of other ones, but we're asking people to think about that. And if we're successful as a community, what will we have accomplished? What will it look like? So we're going to do that in a couple of minutes. We want to talk about the meeting schedule for this task force, because we promised you, and it's our commitment to each other also. We don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want my time to be wasted. You don't want your time to be wasted. So let's figure out a meeting schedule where we'll have something substantive to talk about and do before we meet next time. And then there have been some questions and concerns about code enforcement. We want to make sure people have good information about that. And there have also been a number of questions. Really, at every meeting, we've had questions about street widening and road widening. We want to make sure people have good information about that. But not everyone's concerned about code enforcement. Not everyone's concerned about street widening. So we want to set up mechanisms for everybody to get the information they need that will give them, basically, they can ask all the questions they need to ask until the last dog dies, and they will have good, solid, concrete information. So that's basically our outline for this evening. Okay, So what I'd like to do, I guess, I'd like to put the meeting schedule question. We've been thinking about quarterly. Would that, like, will we have enough if we go quarterly that when we come back together, we'll have something substantive? So that's kind of what we're thinking about. And over the course of this meeting, ideally, we'll come up with a meeting schedule for the next year, so everyone will know ahead of time what date the meeting is, what time it is, where it's going to be, so you can just put on your calendar. You don't have to wait for a flyer, although we will pass out flyers also. So I think what we said we wanted to do when we met as a subcommittee last time, we really want to hear from you, and probably the best way to do that is so that the most people can talk in a short time is to break up into small groups. We've got 3 easels and we've got markers. And so we'd like you to, is this something that you're willing to participate in? Will this be helpful? Yes. Well, hold on a second, Ms. Bobby, and then Ms. Tapscott-Munson.
First of all, could you just explain where we are in the process so we know where we are, and then what our next step is, what we need to do as a community so we can know where we are and what the process is?
So this won't be the first time that the Central Valley has taken the lead, and that's what we'll have to do. Because this question about how you prevent displacement in a rural area where there's a lot of farmland around and farmers who are willing to sell, and the possibility of sprawl is kind of endless. We're in a different situation than San Francisco, which has got the bay on one side and the city and the sea on the other side, and the Golden Gate. It's constrained. Oakland similarly is physically constrained. Their issues about displacement and gentrification are different than ours because of their topography, because of their economics. They're not an ag-based economy like we are. So those we're going to have to figure this out for ourselves. So we're starting with, what does success look like? We have to know that, right? What is the end game for us? Eric, did you want to add something about that?
Yes. Test 1, 2. Okay. No, I think she pretty much encapsulated everything that we're trying to achieve today, in the direction that we're looking to go in, because again, this is such an issue unbeknownst to so many academics, and those that are doing the research. It's really limited, and we do recognize that we are a unique community, and our needs are much different than that of the needs of those that live in the Bay Area, and we recognize that. And so for the conversations that I have with my neighbors that live in the community, there's a lot of fear. And so I think for many, there's a lot of fear. And we need to discuss that, and we need to understand what that is, right? And what does that look like for many of us and our families? And I think we would like to capture much of that today, to ensure that you keep us informed, and as we have conversations with city staff and with other executive leaders, that your voices are represented in this process, and that nobody feels forgotten, because we are a community of one.
Ms. Tapscott-Munson, did that answer your question? Is that?
Not really. So what I want to know is, today, what is the process? So you're saying there's 3 easels. Are those conversations going to be led by persons? And what is the accomplishment for today?
If you don't mind, I think as I stated before, we're going to be doing some information gathering, Ms. Munson, and then from there we will collect the information that we gather from the public, and we'll analyze and review that data, and then we'll have further direction with the city, and as we have this dialogue with one another.
And once we have that information, then that guides the academics when they collect their data, when we figure out what policies we're looking at, like does that policy achieve that thing that the community said they want, or does it avoid that thing that the community said we do not want that? So that's the purpose. Ms. Bobby, you had a question too.
If you could come to the microphone so everyone can hear you and we can capture it for public record. Thank you, Ms. Bobby.
I guess it could be a question and a comment at the same time. You mentioned that in a few minutes we're going to break up into groups. Most of the people here has never attended any of your task force, your displacement task force meetings. You are going to break up into meetings and ask people questions that they have no knowledge of. They don't even understand what this is all about. The gentleman right over there said at your last meeting, which was June the 3rd, he went and tried to get, a material based upon what, as what the meeting was the last time. And he was not able to even get any information. So really, it doesn't make sense when you say that we're going to break up in groups and then get comments when people don't even know what they're going to comment on or what this is all about. They don't even know what an anti-displacement task force is. And then you mentioned about the widening of the streets. All of that is important. But if they don't have the information or haven't read anything or don't know anything, how can they make any suggestions or any comments?
So I don't think you have to have read anything to know what you want for your neighborhood. And that's really what we're asking. So having said that, this is a really good point. Anti-displacement, what the heck is that? How many people can define that, right? There's like a few. So our job as a task force is to figure out what does the city do to make sure people can stay in their homes when there's a bunch of public money coming in. There's the TCC and whoever else, there's big money going to be funneled supposedly into this area of town after so many years of disinvestment, we'll say. That's the polite way of putting it. Hold on a second, sir. So if for so many years the city has pulled resources out of this part of town, has put ugly, dangerous, chemically stinky factories in this part of town, has done all kinds of things to this part of town, and now all of a sudden they're saying, well, now we're going to make it nice. So then what's the next thing that often happens? Well, a bunch of white people move in. That's not necessarily a good thing. Rents go up. People feel like people are banging on the door, I want to buy your house, I want to buy your house. I mean, there's a lot of pressure all of a sudden on people who've been living their lives peaceably in their neighborhoods. So what we're trying to figure out is, what does the city have to do if they're going to put money into this area, which finally, right, how does it benefit the people who live here and protect their right to stay here? That's the goal. That's what we understand our job to be. We want to know, we're hoping that you will share with us, and I don't think you have to read a plan. This gentleman was looking for, I think the Southwest plan was what he said, the specific plan. But I don't think you have to read a plan to know what you want for your neighborhood. And that's really what we're asking. If there's a big park that goes in down the street, if there's new transportation, modes of transportation, if there's a city college campus, whatever it is that happens in this area that makes it more attractive to more people and levels out some of the real damage the city has done to this area, what does it look like for the people who live here now? How do you get to enjoy those benefits rather than feel like you're getting pushed out? Does that? So Hold on just a second, Ms. Harris. This gentleman had his hand up. Yes, sir.
She's ahead of me, so let me.
No. You had your hands up first.
Did I?
I can wait.
Is this something that we're trying to achieve as a group, or are you trying to educate each one of us individually how to hold on to our property? That's the bottom line, right?
Are we trying to,
Well, if you live in a house in this area, I've seen the block of it, did you want to educate each individual owner on their options for trying to keep their property, keep it from being, stolen, I guess, or what you call it, eminent domain, is that it?
so remember, we're citizens, right? So we're not specialists, we're not planners, we don't work for the city. So no, that's like, we don't know how to do that. What we do want to do is we want the city to put policies in place that generally protect the area and protect the people who live here. We're going to get to a little later in the agenda, there are going to be a couple of different workshops for people that are concerned about their own property, but we're not doing that tonight.
All right, I won't get into the weeds now, but rather than changing their policy, maybe we should have a policy change. The attorney over here might know about allodial title to your property. It's non-commercial. It's was used by people. It still is in some rural areas, but it's non-commercial, and you are declare sovereignty on your property. The way they get most of us is because we paid for our property with debt instruments. In other words, the US dollar. And just to pique your interest, maybe we ought to educate ourselves so that we create the policy that they have to follow, because we have a channel to have a superior claim to our property than the city.
Well, that's, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And
Do you?
That
Do you really?
I do.
Okay,
I
cool.
actually do. I've stood in federal court and listened to people make exactly that argument, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's outside our purview here.
Okay.
So, we're assuming...
That's above our pay grade, in other words?
Well, we don't have a pay grade, but we are assuming that for our purposes here, that the city is sovereign here, and, so all those, you're going to have to carry that to a different forum.
Well, I'll leave you with this. Maybe you shouldn't be so nice. Thank you.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Thank you, sir. Ms. Harris?
My name is Brunette Harris, and the problem is that patients, you guys, the last time that you came and you was over at the church, those questions that we had for you guys, we never got them answered, period. So now you want these people, as Bobby was saying, to break up in groups. They don't know what you're talking about. See, in the first place, the city was supposed to have been doing an anti-displacement thing before they came up with that Southwest Fresno specific plan. And what you're talking about is in the Southwest Fresno specific plan. The TCC is. How in the world did they incorporate the TCC anti-displacement plan into the Southwest Fresno specific plan, and you telling us we don't need to read it? It's in there.
I will never tell you you shouldn't read everything that is available to you. All I'm saying is everybody knows what they want for their neighborhood. They don't need to read a plan. They don't need to prove anything to anybody. And we are asking, if we are successful, what would our success look like? Now, people don't have to tell us that if they don't want to, but I would like to give people an opportunity to do that. I think it's disrespectful to folks to say they've got to do homework before they can say what they want for their neighborhood. I think folks can tell us if they want to.
You're correct. It's disrespectful. And that's what you should tell the city. They was disrespectful. Because the Southwest Fresno specific plan, they didn't ask these people what it is that they wanted.
Ms. Harris?
No, I'm just saying.
I know. So let me just say this. What has happened, and it is a tale of horror, no question. It is a tale of disrespect. It is a tale of intentional and negligent damage, no question. And now here we are today, and we are going to do our best to move forward from where we are. So that's the agenda today.
And that's what I'm asking you. See, that's the problem, patient. Is everybody doing damage to Southwest Fresno? Then you guys come in as a group and you're telling us you don't know exactly, because the last time we talked to you guys, you said you didn't know exactly what it is that you could do.
We still don't know.
You still don't know?
No, we don't. That's why we're asking you, and we're asking each person that is in this room. What I just said, let me say it again. Nobody has invented the mechanism yet for collecting the data, for analyzing the data, for developing the policies that will protect people's rights to stay in their home, to stay in their businesses, and not get displaced when there's some big infusion of public dollars.
Can you guarantee us that you guys are going to do something about it?
All I know is, this is my whole life, Ms. Harris. All I know is I'm going to try like hell. Excuse me.
So I have a question, sitting on here, because that was one of my questions I was going to ask that Brunette brought up, is that the last meeting that we've had, and we were discussing data, people was asking about data, some of the things were mentioned, but yet when we come back, we still don't have any answers. Because I know I pondered some of the questions as well. But as we're breaking in these groups, because it's a lot of confusion, like I stated at one of the last meetings when it came down to eminent domain, I was told at a meeting that eminent domain would not reflect on anybody who's living on their property inside of the property. That's what I was told. So what I also was told was that if you lived in a house here and you own the house next door, but the house next door is empty and is part of another plan that wants to come up, then they can use eminent domain on your empty property because nobody's residing there. So as we're talking about getting into a group right now, the question I have is, wouldn't it be easier? I mean, it would have been easier if this was already in place, yes. But being that it's not, my thing of it is, I still haven't seen the list of everybody who has achieved some of that TCC money. I know there was the Common Foods broke ground on Tuesday. For those that don't know, where we're supposed to get, according to the draw up, I mean, it was a beautiful facility that's coming at California and West. That's going to be built right behind the, is that what's the name of the apartments? The brown ones across the street from Sunset. Yosemite. So they broke ground on Tuesday on a 7.5-acre facility that's going to have a garden, but also a state-of-the-art building up for us to be able to go and get our fruits and vegetables. That was the Housing Authority's property. It was sold to the Commons, and they broke ground on Tuesday to start developing. We know the college is coming. Self-Help right now is building houses across the street from Mariella Brown, and they're also looking at some property right here that's next, across the street next to the apartment complex. So I know some of these things that are happening, but what we need is a list of the TCC projects are coming. Then you can determine if any of those that's coming in this area is going to affect any homeowners. That's how you can find out what you need to put in place to save the properties that we're talking about. Because otherwise, like for example, the Food Common is not going to take anybody out of their homes. That property is vacant, and they brought it through the Housing Authority. But we don't know of all the other projects that's coming that's going to be built and developed and who's going to be affected. We need to know who's on that list and where they're looking at to build in order for you to start with this group setting to say we need to put something in place.
Actually, we need to know a whole lot more than that. Because
well, we need to do that before we start.
When there is, for example, when there's a new transportation facility, it doesn't necessarily displace anybody, But the fact that it's there and it makes the area accessible and it gives people ways to get back and forth from the area, that has an impact. The fact that the food commons is going in there, even if it doesn't displace anybody, it still increases the value of the property and it creates something that's attractive in the neighborhood that has the potential to increase the property values. So really, this is very, very, we're not making this up. It's complicated, and there's a lot of different kinds of data that we need. Not just, is this piece of property, does the city want to do something right next door to it or with that property itself, but what is going on in the area in a big way that will have an effect on the area as a whole. So that's why we keep saying, first of all, like Grecia said, we thought, oh good, the urban displacement project, they're going to know exactly how to figure this out. Well, they don't. So that's why we are in the process of figuring out. I don't want to go to at Fresno State, they've got the Central Valley Health Policy Institute. Wonderful people. They are super, super smart. They know all about data, but I don't want to go to them and say, here, figure this out for us. I want to carry to them what the vision of the community is about what people who live here want for this area and say to them, this is what we want to protect, this is what we want to achieve. Now, I don't care if we break into groups or not, but I want to get busy. I don't want to just hear the same you haven't done this, you haven't done that. Okay, fine, we haven't done it yet, but can we move forward already?
Okay, so patients, first of all, let's look at the word gentrification. Of course, it's a scary word, especially for persons that live in our community that own their homes or are older citizens. Let's look at what happened in EPA, East Palo Alto. Pure form of gentrification. Low income, a lot of renters, drug-infested community right down the street from Stanford University. They came in, moved everyone out. They fled to either Sacramento or Stockton. Revamped all those properties, multi-million-dollar homes, okay? But the community was moved out. So what do? Obviously the opposite if we want to be able to maintain that community. So I hear you saying that this has never been done before. It's something that needs to be newly established. Well, obviously we do the opposite of what has been done. But I think that the community still has a lot of questions. I'm sure there's persons here tonight that this is their first meeting that they've attended. So I think this meeting might be better served in the beginning part of it, where the community is allowed to ask questions to the city, being that that's why they're here. And so that might be a good point to start. And then we might be able to collectively as a group formulate the questions to the boards as a group. I think that might work a little better.
So let me just add something right quick. Listen to what you were saying and what Patience was talking about in regarding to developing. One of the questions, because I'm a Southwest resident as well, the question was asked before, but it's been brought up several times by different ones. Brunette brought it up, I brought it up. The question is, when you're talking about people remaining on their property, is if you got this new development coming up, as like they said, it enhances the value of your home. So the question becomes, of those that are on fixed income who live in their houses, what does that do to your property taxes? That's one of the questions you want an answer to, because if your property taxes go up, will you be able to afford to stay in your home? That's where you're going to have a problem at. So it's questions like that as development is coming, and I'm going to tell you right now, gentrification is here and it's not going anywhere. So when you talk about what she's talking about, putting a plan together, it is how to protect your property when the values go up, but the money that you're secured on does not.
Let me do this. I've heard some objections to small groups. I haven't heard anybody stand up and say, yes, I want to do small groups. Could we? So the theory is, what do you want in your neighborhood? The thing about small groups, I don't really care, but one thing I know about meeting in small groups is that everybody gets to talk as opposed to just a few people. So in order to hear from more people, we thought, let's break up into small groups. We don't have to, and each group would have somebody from this committee who would be like writing down what people say. So how many people interested in doing this in small groups? Not a single person? Then fine. Then we will do it this way. All right. Okay, so the question on the floor, and there's
Madam
one.
Chair, can I ask a question? If, unless there's a better translator than I, I'm a little pocho, so ¿hay alguien aquí que nomás puede hablar español y no puede hablar inglés?
Oh,
Hay dos.
thank you.
Está hablando, perdóname, soy un poco pocho, pero me gustan las chivas. Es que una pregunta que la está preguntando es si quieren tener grupos pequeños para hablar y preguntar, o estás bien en este grupo mayor, grande,
Pues,
pero sí.
Pero
sí,
tenemos intérprete. Hay intérprete, ¿verdad, señora?
great.
Okay.
I'll alleviate
Thank you.
myself.
I'm so sorry. Dispense que no habíamos dicho nada. Ok, entonces, levante su mano si quiere audífonos. Ok. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sal. All right, so as Ms. Tapscott Munson suggested, let's, does anyone have a question about what we're doing? This is not like what's going to happen in my house, but like, what are we doing? Sir?
Well, speaking for myself, and I'm sure several people here.
I'm sorry, can you state your name for us?
Granville Ingram.
Thank you so much.
The thing that I want to see mostly in my neighborhood is me. Okay? Parks are fine. You want to do all that stuff? Cool. But I don't want you bringing stuff over here that's going to run everything up so high until I'm gone. What good is a park going to do me if you run me out of my house over the taxes?
Are you a homeowner?
Well, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
Well, some people
Well,
rent.
look. People are here because they hear these words you're saying. They're taking them to heart. They don't affect you guys. They affect us. Somebody said they're coming from my house. I'm a peace-loving person. But I'm not going to just sit here and say, well, yeah, put in a brand new park, put in a this, put in a that. Or you using words like transportation. What do you mean transportation? What, like the train? I don't understand that. You're going to put in a transportation system that's going to affect me living in my house? I've been in my house over 30-something years. I'm not about to leave now. I'm too old to go any place. I've got things under some kind of an idea of how things are working. Now, for me to leave, I'm not going to like that.
Well, and all right, but let me ask you this. What is it that you feel might threaten your ability to stay in your house?
Gentrification.
So
because if you come over here and you start making this attractive to other people who got friends at the city hall who are talking to the city, who know who to contact, who knows how to say, hey, look, you know what? Just start putting more police over there. Start stopping all the cars. Start harassing people. Who? Come on now.
Okay.
You know that don't happen.
So, but this is exactly what I'm wanting to know. And Artie, are you getting this? So,
Yeah.
So you're concerned about increased prices, increased policing,
No, I'm concerned about staying in my house. That's what I'm concerned about.
And I'm just trying to figure out the things that you think might drive you out of your house, or where somebody might try to drive you out of your house.
I have worked and lived in other towns. I've seen what gentrification does. I've seen it start with just the condos. You know, I've seen it start with they start walling off stuff. You know, they start making it more and more difficult for you to access your home and what little bit of parks or recreation we do have. Hey, most of us, we don't need that. We do need a place to stay.
Okay.
You know, and we do need to have the comfort of knowing that the things that we have worked hard for are still going to be here for us, and not somebody who tired of driving past Madera or up in the hills,
Right.
and want to come back here. You know, and they want to come back here, but the people who are here, they don't want.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Madam Chair, I think an easy question. It's really for the staff. Ms. Darden alluded to, it'd be nice to know where the TCC projects are at. I assume there's a map, and whether we have it in my back pocket or at the next meeting, that map would probably be helpful to be able to visually see if we can bring it to the next one, because I think there's a direct correlation between where the projects are going to be built that already have been selected and the homeowners around those neighborhoods would be helpful, I think, that way, and that'll provide the list as well as the location so we can start to see what block is going to be affected specifically, and I think that'll help us cultivate more questions and comments.
Okay.
And one thing I just want to mention is that, yes, TCC, the money from the state is coming at $66.5 million plus of just public investment plus all the private dollars. So it's like over $100 million just here in West Fresno, Chinatown, and downtown. However, from the folks that we work with, and I feel like, JD Homes is especially egregious here, people's rents are already going up. We don't got to wait for, these tens of millions of dollars to be pouring in. If you're a renter, I've heard time and time again that people's rents are going up every few months, and for no reason, and without any maintenance, And so these, we don't necessarily need to wait for TCC to see this happening. We're seeing it today. And then, I don't know if anyone here is a renter, if y'all are experiencing that, or if just the quality of your housing is also. But I just wanted to point out, we don't need to wait for these millions of dollars because it's already happening. We're seeing rent increases here in West Fresno and across, Fresno just in general.
But people have to understand, rent is one thing. So we've stated before, I know I mentioned this before, if anybody is in a rental housing unit, and that person that owns that home want to sell it, they gonna sell it, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's because they own the home. But the thing about it, we're talking about people who actually own their homes. People who, I'm one of them, this gentleman is another, there's a few of them out here who are saying they own their home, and as we know, a few years ago, before the recession, property went up. I got the listing as well in my mail that my property taxes had gone up. It was a roller coaster. But soon as the people north and south, that's Northern California and Southern California, stopped purchasing, all that was raised up here dropped down, and people who took out equity or whatever the case may be, bought homes, they were tipped upside down. Now the banks are saying, well, I want my money back. Your rent or your mortgage is going up 2 or 3 times, and then that's when they couldn't afford it and they lost their house. Well, this is the same thing. If you look at the housing downtown, and the person that owns the majority of the houses downtown is Granville, there's nothing there under $1,000 except for the piece of property the Housing Authority owns on Van Ness. That's it. So when you look at that, and this is all outgrown over there, they're now looking over here. Well, once again, people are just trying to make sure that because like you said, people who's been in their houses over 30 years, these are people who have retired. They've done some work on their houses and whatnot and took care of that, but they're not looking for a new mortgage. So we're just saying, once again, we need that safety net for folks, even if you're building over here, to make sure those people continue to have that safety net.
Yeah, no, most definitely, and I think, I was just going to mention, I think, to your points, I think we can do something about that. If someone sells their home, you can put policies in place to protect them. If rents are in downtown over $1,000, we can do something about that. It's just, what is it that we need to do, is I think the question that patients is asking, what is it that we need? What is the issue and what are the solutions? And I think one thing I would really like to learn more about is, or maybe if we can get a fact sheet on Prop 13 and see how that affects property taxes. Because I know that passed several years ago where it's property taxes are only able to be increased by a certain percentage. I'm not an expert on Prop 13 whatsoever, but I wonder if we can get a fact sheet on that to see how, like, what does that mean for a homeowner? Because I completely understand, like, all these investments that are happening in this neighborhood are going to affect my mom, who's a homeowner, and she's elderly on a fixed income. So I would also be interested on, like, what does Prop 13 mean for her to be able to stay in her home?
So right now, the question on the floor is, what does it look like if this task force does our job and we persuade the city to protect the people in their homes? So that whatever the policies are, I don't know what they are, but we help the city figure out what they should be. What does it look like? What does success look like from where you are? Mr. Ingram gave us an idea. Yes, Janine.
I just wanted to add really quickly that as the Anti-Displacement Task Force, it is under our purview to address displacement or gentrification, however you want to phrase it, of both homeowners and renters. So I would like to hear
And
from
businesses.
both. And businesses as well. So our purview is very broad, and that's one of the reasons why we're asking this question of community members on what do you see this task force doing that you think would actually help you stay in your home, whether you're a homeowner, a renter, or a business owner?
Right, thank you.
My name is Janine Nkosi. I just didn't see it written over there, so I wanted to make sure that we capture that. I think I'm hearing folks say that they want some type of mechanism that is going to provide, like a fund maybe that's set up, that is going to provide a subsidy or something for folks if their taxes go up and they're on a fixed income, that there will be a pot of money, or there will be a cap and their taxes for their property cannot go up. And I think I'm also hearing folks say that we need some type of legal fund and maybe a right to counsel. So if we're talking about homeowners and there's an eminent domain or some type of situation and they're on a fixed income, they need to be able to have a right to legal representation, and it needs to be able to be paid for, because that is a way of displacing folks. If they get entangled in some type of legal dispute and they don't have the money or the means to get representation, that's problematic.
Thanks, Janine. With that, I mean, just listening to that gives me a feeling of comfort. I see people nodding their heads. How many people feel that the ideas that Janine just mentioned are good ideas? Okay.
I want to also say, I'm sorry, those are your ideas. I'm just hearing and going and saying, like, I think this is what you all are saying and framing them in a different way.
Thank you.
No, that's not what we're saying.
Well, that's not what you're saying, Ms. Harris, but other people are saying.
I'm talking. The point is this. You guys, did you guys ever read this book? That's what I want to know. Did you read the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan? I asked you a question. Did you guys read it?
I went through it after you first mentioned it at the first meeting. I can't quote you chapter and verse, though.
No. I'm not asking that.
Right.
Because at the last meeting, everybody sitting at this table promised that they was going to get this book and read it.
I haven't. And I've gone through it, but I haven't read every word.
The problem is that what you're talking about, Deb, that TCC, they're in here on this page, 8-24, and it talks about your anti-displacement. I don't know how TCC got in here, but like we told you guys, you need to read this. Because everything that you're talking about people being displaced and how you can stop it. We are a blighted area. We are redlined. That's what this paperwork says, the city says. And they also say we're the dumbest people in the state of California. This is what this book says. No, I'm just about through. But the problem is when you get to telling us what it is you can do, what lawyers can do, this thing been in effect since '69. And they've been over and over again amending this. We didn't have any say in this. So what you can do for our community is have the city to scrap this, come back to our community and ask the community as a whole what it is they want. Because everybody in here, they might represent they self, but we are a community. And that's the problem. You guys are not addressing our community. That's where the problem coming at. The city didn't do it. So they need to scrap this, because this is gentrification. And we're going to be gentrified, and there's nothing you can do unless you scrap this, because TCC is in this. And they're talking about widening the streets from 180 all the way out to Central.
Ms. Harris, there is one question on the floor right now.
Oh, okay.
And so thank you. And my request is for anybody who hasn't spoken already, Ms. Benson, hang on just a second. Anybody who hasn't spoken already, if you could let us know if we are successful in preventing displacement, what does it look like? What does it mean for you? We heard from Mr. Ingram, we got some ideas from Janine. Ma'am, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I also,
Well, here you're just about to get a mic.
We were caught up in this back in that 1969 plan. And I think redevelopment had a lot to do with this.
Yes, it did.
And I'm telling you people now, I looked around in here, and I don't believe there's anybody else in here. If it is, there's not very many that are as old as I am. I'm 82. Now, back in 1961, I believe it was, redevelopment started coming around. We got displaced. Back then, I think it was called relocated. The home we was in was 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. It was a very nice home, hardwood floors. We paid $10,200 for it. The payments was $65 a month, plus taxes. Okay, wasn't nothing we could do. They told us if we didn't settle, they were gonna take it by eminent domain, and we was gonna get less than what they offered. They gave us $18,000. The house, every time I think about it, I get upset. The house, we had to look for another home. We looked in West Fresno, couldn't find what we wanted that was comparable to what we had in the school districts where our children was going. So we finally found a house. We bought one from Watson Brothers. You know how much it cost? $36,200.
Why don't you sit down while you talk?
To us, that was a big jump, from $75 to $221. That was a tremendous jump, tremendous. But we managed it. It just so happened my husband had a good job. We bought our first home when we was 24 years old. How many youngsters now are buying homes when they're 24?
Right, tell them, my dear, tell them, my dear.
I don't see very many. You know why? I do. Because this is a blighted area. Jobs are scarce. And when I graduated from high school, and I do have some college, do you realize that practically all of my schoolmates, they had to leave here? Why? Because the opportunities were so few. I think we better work on opportunities. That's what I think we ought to work on.
Okay, want me to take the mic now?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
thank
So-
you.
so
We didn't get her name. Can you?
My name is Lucille Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Okay, I just wanted to say real quick, I didn't have an opportunity to introduce myself. I am your elected official. My name is Kimberly Tapscott Munson. I am your Fresno County Board of Educator. trustee for Area 1. I am the first woman of color elected to the board, so I am here for you. I am your representative. I live in the community, and my concerns are the same ones that you have. I am a homeowner, and our concerns are we do not want to lose our homes. But let's remember, this panel was created to assist us. They're not against us. They are here to help us. So let's keep that in mind. They are here to help us. So all of our concerns are pretty much the same concerns. We don't want to lose our homes. Yes, we have been overlooked for over 50 years. I remember growing up Southwest Fresno. My grandmother's house was right down the street from Mr. Fro's. And summertime, when that rendering center, which we used to call as kids the slaughterhouse, when that smell would hit, everybody would run inside. So thank goodness, after 50 years of putting up with that, that's finally been deemed to be moved further out. So we know we've been a disinvested community. They've overlooked us, overlooked us, overlooked us. TCC came down. I was a voting member. I was actually one of the 6 that created the project plan that was voted on and unanimously, except for one person I'm reminded of, voted for that. So we started that project with all the projects that were here in 93706. We picked those projects, then we gave some to Chinatown. They wanted streets, they needed more lighting. Then we went down to downtown and we did our green portions there. So the monies for TCC were deemed for 93706 because we were the 3rd worst zip code for pollution. Okay, so that's why we're getting these monies, because our air is polluted and we are Blythe and we have been a disinvested community for all these years. So yes, it's good that they're finally realizing that we've been a disinvested community, but with the good also can come some bad. Yes, we want the investments. We want everything to be built up. We have a sister community coming in for Fresno City College. We are getting that campus. Yes, we are excited for that because we truly believe through education our community can be lifted up. They'll be offering AAs and AS degrees, and we're excited, and that's that property that's across from Gaston Middle School. All that property is supposed to be retail, another grocery store, Sylvester Hall's project, and we have one of the sisters back here asking about that and why he's not here involved in that project. I don't know why, but right now the reason we're here is for you, the community. If you have questions that you want to ask the city, that's why they're here. Our panel here are here to advocate for us. They created this panel so that they can be of a help to us. So if you have questions or concern, now is your opportunity to ask the city. The group here is here as a help. So let's utilize this time that we have as a group. Okay, I'm gonna give it to her and then I'll give it to you, sir.
My name is Rita McPeters, and I want to know, how long do the city has to get this taken care of? Don't you have a limitation on timeline?
Our task force has a 4-year life.
4-year life?
Yes.
So with the city putting all this other stuff into effect, they could go ahead and do it before the 4 years. Be honest. Be honest.
So the city is, yeah, it would be better for the city to answer for themselves.
See, this
I just want to be clear, we are different from the city. We are not
No,
the
but
city.
I'm just saying.
So if your question is about what the city's going to do, I'm going to refer you to this table over here because they're from the city.
I know, but you're coming in at the last end. This should have been taken care of years beforehand. That this situation should have been taken care of a long time.
I think what happened with the project that was supposed to go down with the TCC, there was supposed to be an anti-displacement portion that was sent with it, and that was not done. Is that where we are?
Ms. Munson, if you could hand staff the
I
microphone,
am, but I
and
think
then
that's what we're trying
they
to
can address
get.
the question for us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sophia Pagalatis, and I'm with the Planning Department of the City of Fresno. I'm hearing lots of questions here, so maybe I can give some background, and then you'll help me, Ms. Tapscott or Ms. Milrod, focus in if I miss some questions. So maybe first a little bit about the Southwest Fresno specific plan. That was a planning process that was authorized by your previous council member and ended, the planning process went from 2015 to 2017. I was the project manager of that planning process, and the purpose of that plan was to help revitalize Southwest Fresno without directly displacing people. There was never a goal to scrape neighborhoods and rebuild, absolutely not. The purpose of that plan was to look at the vacant land in Southwest Fresno and see how that land could be used to help meet needs expressed in Southwest Fresno, such as the community college, such as additional housing, such as more parks and transportation. So that plan has all of those things in it. Now, I need to take a breath here and think about the questions that have come. So,
actually, Sophia,
yes.
I think that Ms. McPeter's question was, is the city going to go ahead and do stuff? Ms. McPeters, correct me if I'm wrong. Is the city going to go ahead and do stuff while we're trying to figure out how to make that less damaging to the people who live here? I mean, are these two things, is it irrelevant what we do because the city is going to go ahead and do a bunch of stuff anyway? Was that your question, Ms. McPeters? So if you could answer that question, that would be really helpful.
Yes, I would say the city will be working on, for example, the TCC projects. That program has a timeline, and Courtney Espinoza here can probably remind us of what that timeline is.
Yes, hi, I'm Courtney Espinoza. I'm the TCC Program Implementation Manager. And the TCC program, it will last about 4.5 years now from this date. It started back in April. And there's 24 projects on it. And those were all voted by the community. They're all on our website. And definitely next task force meeting, I can bring a big map to show where all those projects land and information about all those projects, summaries, what they're going to be doing and where they're going to be at.
Courtney, thank you. And also, there's the microphone. If we could have it come up to the front.
I will.
Okay, thank you so much.
You said that, I don't recall any of those project papers coming around.
That process started back in 2017, and those were voted on back in 2018.
But by whom?
By the community.
But the community, which community? What community was that? What community was that?
There was 164 members of the voting steering committee. Like Ms. Tapscott-Munson said, she was a part of it. Eric was a part of it. Morgan was a part of it. There are a lot of people that were a part of that voting.
But our community appears to me wasn't involved with that.
Well, it depends how you define community, and this was one of the challenges that Ms. Harris had for us. And that is that there's some people here, but there's tens of thousands of more people that live in this area, right?
Right here.
So
if you could bring the mic to the podium.
So I have one question, and that is, does anyone have anything to add to what's already been said? So we can move on with the rest of the agenda. There's a hand here.
Hello.
So where is the microphone? Can we have the microphone,
right
please?
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. So, sir.
He's trying to.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. Could you come up to up here, please? And then the mic will be here where everyone can reach it. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And what is your name, please?
The way I see it, I believe that Fresno has already stopped growing that way because they already hit the river out there.
If you could give us your name.
They no more space out there to build anything, so they're coming south.
Right.
Okay. When I came to live over here, when I bought my house over here in the Chandler Airport, nobody told me that I was going to go through this. And when I bought the house, I didn't buy the house just for having a house. I bought it because I wanted a home. And I wanted to live the rest of my life there. And I'm already 79 years old. If I'm run out of there and they just give me any little thing, how am I going to go and buy another house at my age?
So 2 questions.
When
One,
they're over $300,000 or $400,000 homes.
could you give us your name, please? Your name?
My name is Henry Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. So that was one question. The other question is, if I'm understanding you, your message is the same as Mr. Ingram. You want to stay in your home, right?
I want to stay in my home, and I'm quite sure
right.
there's a lot of people that want to stay in their home because they're older already. They cannot go through this, that the county or city wants to give them any little thing, and they get out.
Well, when you
they're going to keep helping those people?
When you say go through this, what is it that you're worried about going
most of us people are already older, and we cannot afford for the county or the city to be playing with us.
Well, what are you thinking might happen? What is the thing that you're worried about?
Well, they want to rebuild the whole place, and some of us might have to get out of the place where we're living at.
Why would you need to do that? If you don't want to sell your house, you don't have to sell your house. But it sounds like you think somebody might make you sell it. What are you worried about?
You don't remember the Running Man when they was coming through here, all they was planning on doing?
Well,
That land is
Mr. Martinez, let me just hang on just a second. Mr. Martinez, what are you thinking might happen that is worrying you?
Well, the way I see it, that they want to buy all the properties from, if it's true, I mean, from what is it, 180? They want to get all the property from 180 all the way to Jensen or Central.
Okay, thank you. That's just what I needed to know. Thank you. Thank you. And this young lady here had a question too. Can we have your name,
Thank you, Mr.
please?
Martinez.
My name is Anna Marie Gomez. I'm the daughter of a homeowner in Southwest Fresno. So I'm along with everyone else, I would hate for my parents to lose, the property they have. They've been there for 40 plus years. And they quite don't understand. They're thinking the same thing as Mr. Martinez is thinking, that their home is just going to be taken without any, value, and because the new buildings want to go up. So I think it would help if everyone had a better understanding and support the people that are retired. And, if it does cause for better police tasks and sidewalk sweepers to clean up the area, I don't know, whatever it's going to take, but it's pretty sad.
We don't want people to lose their homes either. And one thing that would really help is for people to have more information, right? So the maps that Sal referred to, the plan, like what could happen? Like the worry is that there's this big plan and the government is going to come and do this thing to people, right? So it's not really, even the government doesn't get to just come and do stuff to people. So you want to know 2 things. One is, am I at risk? Am I in the middle, like Ms. Darden said? Am I in a place where somebody wants to come and displace me for some reason? Number 1. And number 2, what's the likelihood of that actually happening? So one of the things, when people sign in at the back, there's a little column on the right-hand side that says, I want to know more about street widening, for example. So if people are afraid that they're going to lose their property, they need to sit down with somebody from the city. See, Sophia over here has got this. So if you want more information specifically about your property, then the city will sit down with a map and they will answer every question. Because it's not, I know, people, this is really, people come by this honestly in this neighborhood, right? I mean, Ms. Williams explained what happened, right? It felt like...
Well, I don't think city street widening is important. What's important is about these folks.
Well,
not being able to stay in their home.
Well, that's what we want. That's our goal, is that people stay in their homes. And I
What is
think
that? What is that going to consist of? What is that going to take to help them be able to write the right things to speak on behalf of these people? What would help them?
So it sounds like in their mind, they see this big, huge bulldozer coming their way, right? And there's no way to stop it. Is that how it feels? So all I'm saying is that there's a bunch of things we could do. One is the bulldozer could go somewhere else,
Sorry,
or the
I'm
bulldozer could
emotional.
stop.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm always this way.
Don't worry, me
No,
too.
yeah. No,
so,
that's okay.
so all I'm saying is that's what we're supposed to do, is like, stop already. No, don't do this. Do something. If you want to improve, don't take this home. But the best, most important thing that your parents can have, and you too, is information about, like Ms. Darden said, this is where my house is. Like Sal said, this is where the map is. This is where the projects are. This is the possible fallout for that. And there are those maps, and all that information is available. And then you find that out, and you're like, oh, I don't have to worry. I'm miles from that.
Yeah, and I think, one, I want to recognize that I think the hurt that you're feeling is real. And I think for many families that live in my neighborhood and in my community feel that same sense of hurt because there has been a systemic and historical neglect on my community. I think that when I look at my grandparents who moved here in the late 50s, African Americans were not allowed to purchase homes on the other side of the train tracks of the 99. And so there was a systemic push to keep us isolated in this community. And I'd be damned if I'm gonna go anywhere now, and it's gonna take a whole lot to push me out. But I give you the reassurance that we as a thought collective are going to do everything that we can that is within our purview to protect the families that are here, to keep them here, and to provide them a level of reassurance that you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So I just want to add a little bit, just to allay at least one fear that was expressed in your comments, is that, so it's illegal for the government to take your property without providing some type of compensation. That's illegal. But we still know, based on our historical context and where we've come, that people could get priced out of their homes for other reasons. One that was mentioned earlier was, a lot of development coming in, property values rising, and property taxes going up with it. So that's one way that people could be priced out, even without their home being bought or taken by the government, which is illegal without compensation. So we're trying to figure out can you stay in your home and not be priced out from these other forces.
Being priced out, that's a concern.
My name is Claudia Williams, and I live out in by Woodward Park. And I own property right here at church and Martin Luther King right across the street. So when they was gonna rezone this area out here, they sent me a notice. But I didn't get a notice based on the other houses that I own here in West Fresno. And so that's why a lot of people didn't get notices concerning in the last year or two when they was asked for this to be rezoned for schools, for shopping centers, for houses, for service stations, and things like that. That's where the city come in at. They rezoned that. They called it out, sent letters out to notify people of meetings that was going to take place, and maps on there, diagrams of where they wanted to put the college and different things on this land out here. They didn't say a lot about the widening of the roads and things like that. So I don't know if that'll affect the house I have on the corner or not, but it's right across the street from Gaston School. But what we are concerned about now, they're gonna start work on these things that we're talking about now. The city plan to start this next year, is that correct? Okay. Yeah, right here.
Mr. Williams, if you could put your name on that and check off on that list there, the city will sit down with you and show you where the work is going to be done and whether it will affect your property,
Yeah.
and answer those questions. So, and that's true for everybody. Anybody here who wants to know whether or not their house or their property that they own is going to be affected should sign up on this sheet here, and the city will sit down with you and answer all your questions about that.
Okay, I got 8 other houses here in West Fresno.
Well, they'll tell you about every one of them.
But I noticed some of the areas that they're not going, if they do go in there to take them, they got to take a whole lot of other houses before they get to mine.
Well,
okay. But anyway, the city, I'll give them my name and everything so they can send me the information.
And you always know you can ask me a question, Brother Williams. We go to the same church, so yeah.
You know how to find you.
You know how to find me.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll have to remember that we go to the same church
Yeah.
together. I don't pay attention to everybody that's there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your
But
comments.
anyway, that's the thing that's going on right now. That's how I know about what went on, what was done over there, because I got them now.
So this young lady in the blue sweater over there, she will take your name and your contact information and make sure that she can answer your questions. Janine?
So some ideas based off of what I'm hearing folks say. One, protection for renters in particular, a right of return. So if renters have to move out of a building because it's going to be, what do you say, like renovated, thank you, that they have a right to return at the same rent that they were paying for a certain number of years. In terms of opportunity, any new business that is going to come from outside into the neighborhood would be charged either a tax or some amount of funding that's going to be set aside in order to ensure that the folks who have existing businesses, their rents do not go up. And not only will there be an initial investment, but there will also be an ongoing percentage of their profit that's paid into that fund as well. Any new businesses that are started, there's a right for for residents in West Fresno have a first right for those jobs. And that we want funding also set aside from those outside businesses and developers, that we want funding also to go toward like small business, any type of business. We want business money set aside for folks in West Fresno so that they can start businesses themselves. And I think a lot of folks are saying that there's absolutely a history of the city not making good on their promises, and we want a show of good faith. So we don't want to wait 4 years to see the very first thing enacted. We want something very quickly, and a right to counsel. A right to counsel is something that exists in other areas along with funding. We don't want an unfunded mandate. So a right to counsel along with funding could potentially be the very first thing that the city enacts soon, by the end of this year. No reason why they couldn't do that or something else as an act of good faith so that people know there is some guarantee that all of the time that they are spending here and all the ideas that they're generating are going to be put into effect.
For clarity, can you restate your name?
Janine Nkosi.
Miss Nkosi, I have 2 questions for you, if you
Yes.
don't mind. When you mentioned a small business fund, or is it under the premise that it is an innovation fund that supports community development, youth development, scholarships, small business development?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't live in West Fresno. I don't have the history here, but so I think it would have to come from the folks that are here. But so I think we should absolutely need to flesh that out, but it shouldn't come from me or folks that don't live in this neighborhood.
Right, or a community benefits agreement of some sort. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello,
My name is Azelle Coleman, and sorry, but I don't want to talk to you. My question is, I heard the young lady here say that there were notices that went out to the community and it was voted on. I heard Mr. Williams say that if he didn't have his property at the one specific spot that you were planning on making new developments to, he would not have known about that. So what has happened is a small sampling of this community is finding out what's going on, and it happens to be a word of mouth by either the task force or people that lives in the community. So basically, this isn't even 1% of this community. I am appalled that we don't know what's going on. Another thing that got me where I said, okay, I can't take this anymore. The isolation is ridiculous. The isolation is going on here. If you sign this paper, I will let you know what's going on about your property. It's an isolated move. We want to know what's going on at all the properties around here. What is being affected? You, sir, I'm sorry, what is your name, sir? Mr. Benelli, when you were asked, when are these projects to start? They're starting already. We are playing catch up as we always are. It is for everybody in this room to let all of your neighbors know what is going on. Those habla español, we need to write it out. Our Hmong neighbors, everybody, this is all of us. So you need to hear from all of us, not a sampling, no more isolation. So we need to see this as a group because you didn't catch us and snuck by real fast. I am not myself a product of seeing this happen in West Fresno, but my grandmother was. My grandmother lived at Modoc and Bowles. Beautiful, beautiful house that she built hard working, is what they used to call back then a domestic worker. She worked her butt off going all the way out to Butler at night in the fog where she couldn't see how to get back, built that house. The city came in right now, that is the bus transit spot. All those people were moved out. My grandmother was the last woman in that whole area by the railroad tracks out doing her yard by herself. She refused to leave. They had to pay her top dollar to get up out of there. But it's right now where that bus place is. So it's not that, oh, well, we don't plan on people to lose their houses. When you got a big idea going, the train gonna come through. My question is, I've lived here all my life, different parts of Fresno. I was born and raised on the west side. I've lived in LA, I've lived all over. I've seen the Inglewood project and what this lady was saying about when they did redevelop, the people in that community were first picks for jobs. A lot of things were torn down, as we call the bottoms, was gone. But they built up that property, and yes, property taxes did go up. But you know what a lot of that came from? Is where areas where it was totally undeveloped. We have so much open land around here. I am totally appalled at the city of Fresno. There was money that was deemed for West Fresno for years. We didn't get it, it went across town. We couldn't get our roads done. But now to displace anybody is unacceptable, and I don't know about y'all, but I'm not going for it at all. You have property out here with nothing. Why don't you build shopping centers out there? Why don't you build a Chili's? Why don't you build a mall where our people and our children can go to work? I read that Southwest Fresno plan, and it is full of to talk about how uneducated our kids are here. Have y'all read it? And another thing I want to know, whoever developed that Southwest plan, where are your sources cited where you got that information from? I couldn't find any. Especially on our graduation rates, I know for a fact that is untruthful. Fresno Unified School Districts is pushing for some of the highest graduation rates, and that includes Edison High School. That includes our kids, so some of that is false. So my question to you is, when, and excuse me, ma'am, your name? Yes. Morgan?
Courtney.
Courtney, when can we see that information that shows who's being affected, what areas are being affected? We need to see that in the next group meeting so that we can have informed decisions. You cannot isolate us and then say, this is what we're doing. We need informed decisions. Everybody tell everybody.
Ms. Coleman, thank you.
Thank you.
I think what... So, thank you, everybody. It is really true that it's crazy to have these meetings with no maps. So, yeah, let's not do that anymore. And how we're going to do that, I don't know, but they need to be big enough so everybody can see them. And I think, hang on a second, and I think that will help. I personally am not going to preside over a meeting where every single person comes and asks about their own personal property. You know, I don't know how it should happen, but I take your point about isolation. I take your point about that. It's like divide and conquer kind of idea. That doesn't work. That's not a good idea. I'm going to move on to, it's already 7:31. We're going to have maps at the next meeting, but we are not going to go through everybody's individual property. That is not happening. Okay, so Eric, what was...
I have a question because all this is tied behind TCC. So first of all, the young lady there that got up and you spoke about having money put to the side and these things, those things could have been happening. So when you look at Amazon and Ulta that has come in and you have your city leaders giving $30 million incentives, $20 million centers to places that's built in our area, that ate up our revenue right there for taxes. That helps build up your community. So it's things like that that comes over here, but we lose that incentive, so we don't get those dollars. But in regards to the TCC, there was a question that came out on the floor, so I need an answer to it. So Courtney is here. So the question that came out when Ms. Lucille was talking, this right here is supposed to transit for 4 years before something is put in place, the anti-task force. We've got 4 years to put something in place for displacement. The question came up because there are already TCC plans that are already being developed. If those plans are being developed now and there is no displacement plan put in place, would those affect, if those plans affect any property owners or business owners, if they go to them and they need in their property and so forth and they make their an offer and there's no displacement plan, how do they get the help? Or does that mean the help isn't going to be there because you still don't have a policy in place?
Right, we're working on the displacement avoidance plan now. It's up at the state right now to be approved. And to answer your question, there is no direct displacement because of any of the TCC projects. All of the projects are going to be built on vacant land.
So that was the answer, which was the question I asked in the first place. That's what these folks want to know is, once again, you got a list of those plans. Who do they affect? And if they don't affect anybody, that should have came up after the question was first pondered on the ground so that people understand their homes are not affected.
Right, their homes are not affected for the TCC project area. There is a map online on the Transform Fresno website that shows all of the project areas. It also has the ability of you to enter your address to see where you are in line with any of the projects, how close you are to any of the projects. There will be no eminent domain because of those projects. Nobody's going to lose their house because of those because of those specific built projects. I think what the task force is more leaning towards is the indirect displacement, which is displacement because of investment into your community, displacement because property values may go up. I think that's the we don't know how to do at that point. That's the question, right? Patience,
Right.
am I correct?
Right, which takes us to the next agenda item, which I'm bringing back to the task force. The city we're gonna put money into the project of figuring out how to identify those indirect effects and how to mitigate them, reduce them, eliminate them. So that means working with a consultant, and we have been invited as a task force to participate in that RFQ development process. I'm hoping that we'll do that. A couple of people have already, from the task force, have already said we're interested in working on that. And so I'm hoping that when we call on you, that I think we need 2 or 3 people from the task force. Is that, Courtney, is that right? Ish? Okay. So that as we sit down and develop those qualifications, that folks from the task force will participate. Just a second, ma'am. Hi. The last thing I think we've effectively addressed, and that is a displacement definition. What I've heard over and over and over again is, I want to stay in my home. I don't want to have things change, so I'm forced out of my home. And what that looks like that being forced out of your home, that can take all kinds of forms. And I think that it's our job to look at the indirect effects that could conceivably create that situation where somebody's being forced out of their home. So, or business, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sabina Hernandez. Okay, one of those indirect causes may be street widening for the growth of the community, supposedly to make it larger for all the businesses and homes and whatever you're going to put there. So we are going to have that as a direct, there's going to be an effect. So a lot of the homes are going to be displaced because of that.
If the streets are widened. And I don't, if you're concerned about that, then make sure that Sophia has your information, and we're going to bring a map next time so everybody can see.
No, Southwest. I'm talking about Southwest, okay?
Right.
Yeah. Are you going to have the map address that issue?
Yes.
Is it going to make it obvious so people can understand it, that those streets are going to be widened to the houses and affect
That's
the
exactly the purpose of the map. Morgan.
You know, I guess out of everything that I've heard today, there's a lot of good things that I've heard, a lot of, I guess, misconceptions. I mean, like Chinatown right now is going through an investment period, gentrification, which is not always a bad thing. We had at least a handful of major buildings that have been abandoned for 30 years, just being bought by developers that for, people in our Chinatown community, we're embracing this investment opportunity and helping the businesses thrive in our area. More foot traffic, safety, urban beautification, active transportation. But the last thing I would want to see what happened with Fulton Mall, how they basically they made it impossible for people to do business while they were constructing the street. They raised the rent prices ridiculously. We did not do anything to help control that, and now we're up against what we're up against. Chinatown might go through the same thing, but right now, because a lot of empty land and vacant buildings are being purchased right now, I think the businesses are happy that business could be getting better. I know as a property and business owner, I look forward to these investment opportunities. And if people are afraid that their houses are going to raise up in value, I hope you don't want it to lower in value during this time. I mean, is this something that we want to take advantage of? And if rent control was created in Fulton Street, I think it would have saved a lot of businesses there. And those are the things that I'd like to see come about and we talk about these things and say, hey, in a perfect case scenario, what would it look like? Well, we'd have rent control, we would have this, and we would have that, and we would have business support to, ensure that while construction's happening, we're gonna help the businesses that are on the street. So I don't know if I had to give my 2 cents. I haven't spoken today. And
I'd like to address the people from City Hall. Okay, I want to let you know that I've been out in the community lately a few times to inform people, give them leaflets and papers so that they can know what's happening and what's possible that's coming down the road. I have only run across one person in all that time that knew half of what you're talking about here. How is that possible? And are you going to be able to change that in any way? It's not fair that they don't know. And you don't have any plans to let them know. It's like you're hiding things.
Well, that's untrue that we don't have any plans to let them know, so I just wanted to clarify that. We are doing a community engagement plan. We will have 6 different agencies that are local that will be getting the information out to the community in various ways, through door-to-door, through websites, through walk and talks, through whatever the case may be. There's going to be several ways. And so we are going to hire those organizations to get our message out. I'm one person that works for TCC. I can't knock on everybody's door. We are just starting this project. We are just starting to get these projects off the ground. We had 3 groundbreakings this last 7 days. So these projects are starting, and we will shortly be getting the information out to the community, how you guys want to get that information. Okay, we have heard from the community, and we are taking steps to move forward on that.
That's great for the future. What happened before this period of time? Nothing. I don't see it.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. We appreciate your comments.
So it's 7:45. I'm going to take one more comment, and then we are going to adjourn. You have all been very patient. We really appreciate everyone being here this evening.
Real quick, I'm Kenneth Bush. I have property. I live on the west side. I have homes out in the Herndon area, and I think this task force needs to basically correct the credibility that the city of Fresno has with West Fresno, because there is none. That gentleman there is sitting there. He's already made up his mind. We're going to do what we're going to do. I've been done that way, okay? You took 30 feet and you decided I needed 10 more. You took it. You're very wrong, sir. They can take it, and they will. You know why? You have the men in blue. I ended up in jail at 50 years old, never seen a jail. Patience was my attorney, you remember me, and Clarence.
You look familiar.
Yeah. So fix the credibility problem, work with us, talk to us. John Pestrich has no interest in West Fresno. He only cares about the head count of Washington Union High School. I don't know how you're going to fix it, if you want to fix it, but we can go through 1,000 of these meetings and nothing's going to change. You're going to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
We're not doing anything except...
They will.
Well, they will try. They will try. You're not going to be alone. If the time comes, we will be arm in arm with you.
Well, when they cuffed me and put me in the back of the car, and I had never been through that, I was by myself. And I had a heart attack.
Mr. Bush, thank you for your comments.
So thank you all very much. We're going to, the plan at the moment is to schedule the next meeting for 3 months from now, because I don't see that we'll have something substantive to bring to you in 30 days. In 3 months, there should be a consultant on board, And before 3 months, if you've signed in, you will have heard from one of the consultants or one of the community organizers that's going to be working with the consultants to bring information from the community. So if you didn't sign in yet, if you would sign in with your contact information so that we can find you. So that's our hope, is that we've put the RFQ out for the consultants, we've hired the consultants, and they've started working. If they haven't started working yet, we will not call a meeting, because we're not going to just bring people together to, for no reason, okay? Yes, Eric.
Okay. I would also like to remind the public that on Thursday's council agenda, the Elm Avenue Brownfields plan will be taken to a vote for adoption. Those documents are available on the city's website, and they will be soliciting comments and feedback from the public at Thursday's council meeting.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everybody. Any last minute comments from the committee? Okay, thank you all. Have a good evening.